Discovering the incredible truth. How my heartwarming HVAC work changed my sister's life forever. Jack had always been the dependable fixer in Maplewood. The man with a tool belt slung over his shoulder, and a smile that made you believe he had the answer to every problem. But behind that facade he carried a heavy heart. At 35 he struggled to keep his head above water while his siblings thrived. His sister Emily, a fiercely independent single mother, was barely managing with 3 part-time jobs to make ends meet. And it hurt Jack to see her strained, especially after her health crisis left her teetering on the brink of financial collapse as frost began to creep into the crevices of their small town. Jack watched the stress wear on Emily. Her furnace wheezed like an old man fighting for breath, and he could see the desperation in her eyes. But pride is a tricky thing. It can build walls higher than any house. Their last conversation had ended in frustration, with Emily unintentionally pushing him away. He wanted so badly to help, but he hesitated. That night, driven by a love he couldn't articulate, Jack decided to take matters into his own hands. He quietly gathered his tools and slipped into Emily's backyard under the cover of darkness. The biting wind nipped at his cheeks, but his resolve burned hotter. As he inspected her furnace, it dawned on him how fragile their connection had grown. His heart ached at the thought that pride could destroy the bond they shared. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Jack was engulfed in the smell of rust and heating oil, the rhythmic buzzing of the furnace resonating with his heart. He felt the weight of the world on his shoulders, that if he could just fix this one thing, maybe he could bridge that chasm building between him and Emily. The tools in his hand felt foreign, yet so familiar. But as he tightened the last bolt, panic swept through him like a winter storm. Emily called out to her neighbors, her voice trembling, as the furnace wheezed its final breath just moments before the storm hit. Jack could hear her frantic pleas, and it tore at his chest. She was alone, struggling to keep Ethan warm with a broken heater in the dead of winter. Jack wrestled with the internal conflict of wanting to help while fearing rejection. And then, just as the first flakes of snow began to fall, a sense of urgency coursed through him. He sprang into action, racing back to his van. The fierce winds howled outside, but inside he felt a warmth kindling in his heart. He wasn't just fixing a furnace. He was lifting his sister from despair. As he arrived at Emily's door, his resolve steeled. A storm of emotion welled within him. Would this act of kindness either mend their relationship or deepen the rift? As Jack stood there freezing in the snow, uncertainty gripped him. There was more at stake than just heating a house. The moment hung heavy in the air, leaving Jack to wonder if he could truly restore not just the furnace, but the bond they once had. Jack took a deep breath, steeling himself for what lay ahead. He rapped his knuckles against the door, feeling the chill sink deeper into his bones. Every second felt like an eternity, with wind howling and cold air biting at his skin. When the door creaked open, a wave of warmth and light from within enveloped him. Emily stood there, eyebrows knit together in confusion, a tension hovering in the air between them. "Jack?" she whispered, disbelief slanting her voice. "What are you doing here?" He forced a smile, trying to disguise both his nervousness and his purpose. "I thought you might need a hand with the furnace." His words trailed off as he noticed the flicker of emotion in her eyes, a mix of hope and that same stubborn pride that had driven them apart. "I can handle it," she replied. But there was an uncertainty there, a softening that Jack wanted to seize. "I'm sure I'll figure it out." Jack knew this wasn't just about a furnace. It wasn't even just about fixing something broken. It was about showing Emily that she didn't always have to do things alone. "Let me help, Em. I can get it working again, I promise." Silence stretched between them, heavy with all the unspoken words of the past few months. Emily hesitated, her guarded expression betraying her turmoil. Jack's heart raced. He knew this moment could either break them further apart or inch them closer together. "Fine," she finally sighed, stepping aside to let him in. But just this once. As he stepped into her living room, The familiar scents of cinnamon and cocoa swept around him, memories rushing back of holidays spent laughing and singing together with their family. But the walls now looked a little worn, and the air carried the weight of unspoken fears. Ethan's in bed, she added softly, her voice barely above a whisper. He gets cold so easily. I can't let anything happen to him. Jack nodded, understanding the stakes suddenly felt far bigger than he imagined. He felt the responsibility settle on his shoulders as he made his way to the basement. I'll have it going in no time, he reassured her, and he believed it. As he worked, the rhythm of his tools clanging filled the silence, and for a moment, he could almost feel the distance between them shrink. He could hear Emily moving around upstairs, keeping busy despite the uncertainty. Each click and clank of his efforts sounded like their past laughter echoing through the walls. Then, after what felt like an eternity, there was a low hum, a click, and the furnace began to stir. Jack's heart soared. It might take a minute to warm up, he called out, wiping sweat from his brow. Emily appeared in the doorway, her expression shifting from skepticism to hopefulness. Really? You got it? Yep. Just needed a little TLC, he grinned, feeling a rush of warmth flood him at her tentative smile. But just as relief began to wash over him, another thought stabbed through the same pride that had kept them apart threatened to rear its head again. He considered his next words carefully, wanting to dig deeper than the surface with Emily. I've missed you, he said, feeling his chest tighten. I hate seeing you struggle, and I hate being on the outside looking in. Her gaze softened. I've just been trying to keep it all together, Jack. And you don't have to do it alone. You know that, right? They locked eyes, and for a moment, the air was thick with unspoken truths. Jack had no idea if their bond could be repaired, but he knew he needed to try. As the warmth flowed through the house like the promise of a new day, Jack felt hope flicker. But as he stood there, heart pounding, ready to embrace whatever came next, another thought loomed. Would their conversation bring healing? Or was it destined to open wounds they weren't ready to face? The shadows danced around them, leaving Jack with a question lingering unvoiced. Was it already too late? Jack could feel the weight of his words lingering in the air, a fragile thread connecting them. Emily's expression shifted, the flicker of hope quickly shadowed by doubt. I've been doing fine on my own, you know, she said, her voice tinged with defensiveness. Have you? Or have you just been convincing yourself that you have to? Jack stepped forward, closing the gap between them. He wasn't trying to push her. He just wanted her to see that he cared. I can't just rely on you, Jack, she said, folding her arms tightly across her chest. I've had to figure this out for myself. You disappeared when I needed you most. The accusation stung, but he couldn't deny the truth in it. And I'm sorry for that, truly, Jack replied, his tone earnest. But I'm here now. Can't we just talk? Just see where this goes. Emily's gaze flickered for a moment, as if weighing her options. Talk, she echoed, a flicker of interest igniting in her eyes. What do you want to talk about? About everything, he urged desperately. About us, about Ethan, about how we can find a way back to each other. He gestured toward the living room, wondering if perhaps the familiar setting could offer a sense of safety. Can we sit down? She hesitated, but finally she nodded, her defenses lowering just a fraction as they settled onto the couch. The warmth from the furnace began to spread, wrapping around them. Jack felt a timid sense of hope as they faced one another. I know things haven't been easy for you, he began, keeping his voice steady. But you don't have to be the strong one all the time. I want to share that weight with you. I get scared, Jack. Emily's voice trembled slightly, and Jack could see a hint of vulnerability creeping into her gaze. I don't want to feel weak or like I can't handle anything. But every single day feels like a struggle. I try to be brave for Ethan. And you are brave, Em, he reassured her quietly, moving closer. But even the strongest people need help sometimes. It's okay to lean on someone. It doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're human. A single tear slipped down her cheek, and she wiped it angrily away, as though shoving down the swirling emotions bubbling to the surface. I guess I thought if I pushed you away it would hurt less. That only leaves you alone, he replied, his heart heavy for her. I'm sorry for not being there before, but I don't want to lose you again. Can we start anew? The tension in the room lay thick, charged with so many what-ifs. Emily looked up, her eyes searching his. I want to believe that we can. But it's scary, Jack. We can't just go back to how things were. No, he agreed, inspiration flaring in him. We have to move forward. Together. It's about rebuilding brick by brick. Just like I fixed the furnace today. With a small smile breaking through her uncertainty, Emily whispered, maybe I could finally let you in. Just this once. That's all I'm asking. Just one step at a time, he said, his voice reverberating with hope. But what they didn't realize as the warmth enveloped them, was that the journey back together would uncover truths that neither were prepared for, truths that could either bind them forever or tear them apart once more. As the furnace hummed steadily, so did the question lurking at the edge of their hearts. What might they discover in the warmth of honesty that could either heal or hurt them? The silence between them filled with unspoken thoughts, heavy yet pregnant with possibilities. Jack could feel Emily's heart racing just as much as his own. It was a raw moment, a fragile truce paved with layers of hurt and hope. Okay, she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. Let us talk about Ethan. About how we can be there for him. Jack nodded, relief washing over him. I've been thinking about that a lot. He needs us, Em. We can create a more stable environment for him together. Emily's brow furrowed as she considered this. But how do we do that when everything feels so broken? I mean, what if we falter again? What if we rise? Jack countered, his tone gentle but firm. We can't change the past, but we can shape the future. And if we commit to communicating honestly, there's a chance we can make it work. She let out a shaky breath, her arms gradually uncrossing. Just so much has happened. Talk to me, Jack urged. What's really on your mind? A flicker of hesitation crossed her face. For a brief moment, he thought she might retreat again. But instead, Emily leaned forward, resting her elbows on her knees. The change felt significant, a small surrender in this battle of emotions. I'm scared of failing again, she admitted, the words finally spilling out. What if, after trying, we still can't be what Ethan needs? Life is all about trying. Failures come with it. We can't predict everything, he said, inching closer, soaking in her vulnerability. But we've got to try together now. Lean on me. A soft smile tugged at her lips, but it flickered like a candle in the wind. I wish it were that easy. It can be easier with trust, Jack replied, his voice low and steady. We don't have to figure it all out tonight. Just take one small step first. Let me share my space, my cares. I want to support you, even when I don't have the answers. He noticed a glimmer in her eye, a mix of longing and hesitation. What if I get hurt again? That pulled at him. He reached for her hand and caught her off guard. Then you lean on me harder. I promise I won't let you fall. Emily looked at their joined hands and took a deep breath, as if she could inhale courage. What if we try to be honest about our feelings? All of them, even the messy ones? Definitely, Jack encouraged, feeling the energy shift between them. This journey isn't just about Ethan. It's about us learning to communicate and heal. It starts here tonight. But just as hope began to blossom, the heavy reality of their past loomed over them again. Emily looked away, her expression shifting. But what if we unearth things that are harder to hear, Jack? Things we both haven't faced yet? Then we face them together. No matter what. In that moment they caught each other's gaze, and for the first time in a long while, the air felt charged not with tension, but with possibility. But their tentative peace was interrupted by the sudden jangling of Emily's phone. A harsh reminder of the world outside. They both flinched as if jolted back to reality, and she laughed softly, a nervous sound. Always at the wrong moment, right? Looks like our honest talk might have to wait, huh? Jack said, half smiling. As she glanced at the screen, uncertainty clouded her face once more. It's Ethan's teacher, oh no. Jack felt a knot twist in his stomach. What does it say? Emily's brows knitted together as she read the message, her eyes widening in shock. It's about his behavior at school. He got into trouble again. The warmth of their moment faded, replaced by a rush of worry. What did he do? I don't know, but I'm scared, she said, her voice trembling again. It's like he's pushing us away too. Jack squeezed her hand tighter. Then we need to act. For Ethan. For us. The air was thick with urgency now, their budding connection overshadowed by concern for the little boy, who had no idea of the storm brewing around him. Would their journey to honesty and healing hold up against the chaos of parenthood? And before they could process any more, the question loomed. Were they truly ready to face whatever it took to reach Ethan and each other? Emily's heart raced as she read the message again. The weight of her fears settled heavily on her chest. What had Ethan done? As she replayed the moment of Jack gripping her hand, she could sense the tentacles of panic ready to ensnare her again. "Okay, let us think." Jack leaned closer, focused and calm. "What was the last thing you heard from his teacher? Maybe it can give us a clue." Emily considered that. She mentioned he was distracted in class, not focusing on his work. Then there was a scuffle at recess. It doesn't he sound like him? Doesn't he mean he isn't struggling though, Jack said, his voice steady. Kids sometimes lash out when they feel like no one is hearing them. Right, she murmured, her breath slowly coming back to her. But what do? We figure it out together. We can talk to his teacher. Understand what's really going on. Maybe we can set up a plan, Jack suggested, his eyes searching hers for reassurance. Emily nodded, but the unease churned in her stomach. I just hope we find the right words. What if our talking doesn't help? Jack shifted closer, letting go of her hand to place a reassuring arm around her shoulder. Then we try again. Just like we're doing. We can't fail unless we stop trying. Despite the swirl of anxiety within, a flicker of admiration for Jack welled up. He seemed a rock amid the turbulent waves. She couldn't help but lean into his embrace, her worries softening just a little. Thank you for being here, Jack, she said, her voice shaking slightly. I don't know where I would be without you tonight. Not alone, that's for sure, he replied, squeezing her tighter. We aren't just fighting for Ethan, we're doing this together for us. What matters is that we're in this. Every step counts, even the stumbles. As they held on to each other, Emily felt the knot begin to loosen. She understood the tasks ahead felt monumental. But with Jack beside her, it somehow felt less daunting. The phone buzzed again, pulling them from their cocoon. It was Ethan's teacher, sending over details for a possible meeting. Emily glanced down, her racing heart catching up to her. We can meet tomorrow after school. It's a step. Jack smiled gently, the hope of that small step igniting something deep inside them both. Great. That's the start we need. We'll tackle this head on. Emily took in a deep breath, the scent of Jack's cologne mingling with a hint of sandalwood from the nearby candle. Every fiber of me wants to run away from this situation, she admitted. But now I feel like I can face it. I want to do this. For Ethan. For us. Then let us channel that fear into strength, Jack replied, his voice infused with determination. I guess it's a new beginning, Emily said, her eyes brimming with unshed tears. Just then the gleam of hope was shattered by a distant rattle. Did you hear that? Emily asked, suddenly alert. Jack stared at her, confusion flickering over his features. What do you mean? Outside something's happening, she urged, moving to the window. Peering into the dark, she saw flashing lights and the sound of a growing commotion. Oh no, what's going on? In an instant their world shifted again. They exchanged wary glances, both acutely aware that the challenges of parenting were beyond simple conversations now. Let us get to Ethan, Jack stated firmly, reinforcing their resolve. As they rushed for the door, the weight of fear mixed with a renewed determination. They were ready to protect what mattered most. But the night's unexpected storm was just beginning. What awaited them outside might just test the very limits of their newfound connection. Emily pushed the door open, a chill from the night air rushing in, wrapping around them like a warning. The flashing lights danced erratically, illuminating the path to where Ethan was supposed to be. Jack squeezed her hand, grounding her as they stepped outside, the chaos swirling around them. Stay close, Jack whispered, his voice steady but low, the urgency tinged with concern. They hurried down the path, the distant shouts of voices growing louder, slicing through the cool night air. Emily's heart raced, each beat amplifying her fears. What could it possibly be? She murmured, anxiety knotting in her stomach again. Just keep moving, Jack urged, his grip firm as they weaved through a group of onlookers gathered around a squad car parked haphazardly near Ethan's school. The blue and red lights cast a surreal glow on terrified faces, people whispering and speculating. Ethan, Emily called out, her voice rising above the murmurs. She pushed through the small crowd, her heart pounding in her chest. Then she saw him. Ethan stood with a police officer, his little frame looking so small and vulnerable. He was talking, his voice a muted sound just out of reach, and Emily felt her breath catch as she rushed forward. The officer turned at her approach, a look of understanding softening his expression. "Ma'am, stay calm," he said, holding up a hand. "Your son is fine. There was a minor incident, but he's safe." Jack gently tugged Emily back as panic surged through her. "What kind of incident?" she breathed, anxiety flaring anew. The officer gestured toward a group of children, huddled together in the glow of the flashing lights, whispering nervously. "A child got hurt during a scuffle, but it's nothing serious." Emily's chest tightened as she surveyed the scene, searching for any sign of Ethan's distress. Finally, her eyes locked onto his. He looked so relieved but also bewildered, as if trying to process everything that had happened. "Ethan," she called again, her voice trembling with emotion. He turned, spotting her in the crowd. His eyes widened and suddenly, he bolted toward her, his feet pounding the asphalt. Emily dropped to her knees, arms wide open, and he leapt into her embrace. She held him tightly, feeling his small body shake slightly. I thought I lost you," he whimpered into her shoulder, and Emily's heart shattered, breaking under the weight of that fear. "I'm right here, sweetheart. I'm right here," she whispered, tears now streaming down her cheeks. Jack stood behind them, his presence a steady anchor in the storm. As they pulled apart, Ethan looked up at her, confusion merging with concern. "Why are there police here? I didn't mean to cause trouble." "Sweetie, you didn't," Emily reassured him, brushing his hair from his forehead. "Can you tell me what happened?" Ethan glanced back at the officer, anxiety etched on his features. "I don't know. Just a fight during recess. A kid fell and everyone got scared. I didn't do anything wrong." Mom. Jack crouched beside them, placing a hand on Ethan's shoulder. "Hey buddy, it's okay. Sometimes things just happen and it's important to talk about them." The officer nodded, easing the tension. "Kids can get carried away during play. It's normal. You guys definitely did the right thing coming here." As Emily absorbed the officer's words, relief washed over her. But lingering just beneath the surface was another layer of anxiety. Why hadn't Ethan told her about the fight earlier? Why had he felt he needed to hide it? Jack exchanged a knowing glance with Emily, reading the unspoken questions in her eyes. "We need to keep the lines of communication open," he murmured softly, his unwavering support propelling her forward. "Ethan, can we talk more about what happened when we get home?" Emily asked gently, hoping to draw him out, to encourage him to be honest. "Yeah," he said, his voice small, but there was a glimmer of understanding in his eyes. They turned back to the officer, ready to ask more questions, but as they did, the commotion around them shifted. A loud bang echoed across the street, sending every heart racing again. Lights flickered, extinguishing one by one, plunging them into darkness. "What was that?" Ethan shrieked, clutching Emily's hand even tighter. Jack's jaw clenched, determination flickering in his eyes. "We need to find out. Stick together, everyone." As they squared their shoulders against the encroaching shadows, Emily felt a rush of dread overtake her. Were they truly prepared for the night ahead? As the echoes of chaos continued, uncertainty loomed like a storm cloud ready to burst. They stepped cautiously toward the uncertainty ahead, ready to face more than they ever expected. What was hidden in the darkness? What test awaited their fragile bond? Emily squinted into the thickening darkness, her heart beating loudly in her chest. She could feel the same distress from moments ago creeping back in, tightening in her throat. Ethan squeezed her hand even tighter, as if he could absorb her fear, and she marveled at the resilience in his small frame. Jack led the way, stepping lightly over cracked pavement but keeping his body in front of theirs, a silent protector one step ahead. Emily followed closely, her mind racing, searching for answers in every creak of the night air and rustle of the leaves. Who or what had disrupted the fragile peace of their evening? The faint shimmer of a light cut through the blackness, casting an eerie glow onto the faces of a few nearby bystanders. A group of teenagers stood nearby, their hands raised defensively. The tension in the air had shifted, heavy with anxiety. "What's going on?" Jack asked, his voice steady despite the simmering uncertainty all around. One of the teens, a boy with tousled hair and wild eyes, stepped forward. "We thought it was firecrackers at first, but then we heard a crash. It's not safe here. You should get your kid away." "Where?" Emily asked, her instinct kicking into high gear. Where can we go? Over there, he pointed, his finger trembling towards the park. It's safer away from the crowd. Emily nodded, urgency refueling her as she turned to Ethan. We need to move, sweetheart. Stay close. He nodded, a determined expression masking his earlier fear. They hurried toward the park, the shadows behind them retreating the farther they traveled. With each step, the weight of looming dread seemed to lift slightly, but Emily was acutely aware of the fragility of that relief. Jack kept a watchful eye, glancing back, ensuring no one had followed them. Emily felt a pang of guilt. She hadn't fully processed what had just unfolded with Ethan. It fought against the adrenaline coursing through her veins. They needed a quiet moment to talk, but first they had to get out of harm's way. As they entered the park, the trees stood tall and silent, swaying gently in the cool breeze, holding secrets in their branches. Emily sat down on a bench, pulling Ethan onto her lap, while Jack stood nearby, scanning the area. Are you okay? Emily whispered into Ethan's ear, her fingers stroking his hair soothingly. I'm fine, Mom, he said, though the tremor in his voice betrayed him. But what was that noise? It was just a loud sound, Emily replied, trying to keep her voice calm, even as her thoughts swirled with questions of her own. But we're safe now, we're together. Jack crouched beside them, keeping his large frame wide and inviting. Ethan, we know you were scared back there. Can you tell us what really happened at school? Ethan shifted slightly, and his gaze fell to the ground. I didn't want you to worry. It was just a fight. Kids get mad, Mom. It's okay to be mad. Emily leaned closer, meeting Ethan's eyes. But hiding things makes it worse. Do you understand? He looked up, a flicker of recognition flashing within him. I guess I just didn't want you to think I was a part of it. I didn't want you to be upset with me. Honey, you could never upset us. We just want you to be safe and feel like you can talk to us about everything, no matter how small. Jack gently tapped Ethan's shoulder, their connection solidified by understanding. As Ethan processed their words, Emily felt a flicker of hope igniting, but her body still hummed with worry. What else lurked out there? What would tomorrow bring after this unexpected detour in their lives? A distant cry pierced through the night. It was a mix of fear and authority, a voice piercing the veil of darkness that clung around them. Emily's heart raced again. The night held more terror than she'd thought. Then, as they stood up to leave the park, a figure dashed past them, rushing toward the direction of the commotion. Where are they going? Who was that? Ethan's eyes widened in alarm. Jack's jaw tightened. We can't ignore it. We need to find out. The fear of the unknown swirled violently in Emily's chest yet again, this time mingling with courage. They could not remain hidden. It was time to face whatever storm awaited them ahead. Stay close, she whispered, a pulse of determination setting in. They were in it together, come what may. With the sounds of the unknown echoing in the distance, they began walking toward the looming uncertainty. What lay ahead? The night had only just begun to reveal its mysteries. Emily's heart pounded as they stepped away from the quiet of the park and into the chaos beyond. The distant screams flickered in and out of her awareness like a haunting melody. Jack moved quickly, scanning their surroundings. Keep your eyes open, he murmured, his voice steady yet urgent. Ethan glanced back at his mother, brow furrowed. What if it's really bad, Mom? She offered a small, brave smile, though dread gnawed at her insides. We'll face it together just like always. You're so strong, Ethan. Silence hung between them for a heartbeat before the shouts broke through again, sharper this time. They moved closer to the source, the sound echoing like a drumbeat in her ears. What could be happening? As they rounded a corner, the bright lights of emergency vehicles began to flicker in the distance. Red and blue painted the scene, illuminating the worry etched across the faces of bystanders. It felt surreal, as if they had stepped into a different world. People stood huddled together, whispering and pointing, but she couldn't see what was going on yet. Jack took a decisive step forward. Let's see what's happening. They weaved through the gathering crowd, each step heavy with Emily's increasing anxiety. She felt an electric tension in the air, fueling her instinct to protect Ethan at all costs. Then they reached the front, and Emily's breath caught in her throat. A small group of paramedics surrounded a boy lying on the ground. He was covered in dust and shoelaces, his face bruised. She recognized him. It was the boy from the schoolyard scuffles, the one Ethan had mentioned. What happened? Jack pushed forward, urgency driving every word. A paramedic glanced up, clearly overwhelmed. He fell off his skateboard and hit his head. We're doing everything we can. Ethan's grip tightened around Emily's hand, fingers digging into her skin. Is he going to be okay? Emily felt the pulse of worry wash over her. Let us just give them space, Ethan. They know what they're doing. But her insides twisted with unease, unable to shake the image of the boy crumpled on the ground. Ethan squirmed beside her, searching her face for answers. I heard he was a bully. Shouldn't he get in trouble? Sometimes accidents happen, Jack chimed in, his tone gentle but firm. No one deserves this, Ethan. It's important to be kind, even when we're scared or hurt. A wave of emotion coursed through Emily. Jack was right. Kindness was a lesson that stretched beyond right and wrong. She hoped it sank into Ethan's heart. She hoped he would understand. But even as they stood there, watching the unfolding chaos, a shadow danced at the corner of Emily's eye, someone watching from the sidelines. She turned suddenly, catching the glimpse of a familiar face among the crowd. It was the boy with wild eyes, the one who had warned them moments ago. Her heart raced. She caught a flicker of fear in his expression before he darted away into the shadows again. Wait! Emily shouted instinctively, but he was gone. Mom? Ethan's voice trembled, pulling her focus back. What's wrong? A chill washed over her. Something felt off. We should find that boy. He might know more. Are you sure? Jack asked, a concerned frown stitching his brows together. Yes. He might have seen something. We can't let fear win. The conviction in her voice surprised even her. Hand in hand, they took off after the wild-eyed boy, chasing a truth she couldn't yet understand. What answers lay in the dark corners of the night? And more importantly, what would they discover about themselves as they pursued them? As they rounded a corner, a sudden crash erupted from a nearby alleyway, followed by frantic shouts. Emily's heart raced. What awaited them next? Emily's heart raced as they approached the alley, the dim light flickering against the cold bricks. The crash echoed like a warning, slamming into the air around them. She exchanged a quick glance with Jack, a wordless agreement that they had to keep going. Ethan, still tightly gripping her hand, looked up, confusion swirling in his big eyes. What was that? He whispered, anxiety thickening his voice. I don't know, but we'll find out together, Emily assured him, though doubt crept into her mind. The uncertainty felt heavy, no longer a mere backdrop to their night. It was a living thing, tangling with her thoughts and pushing her forward. They moved cautiously toward the entrance of the alley. Shadows stretched long, and the world around them pulsed with murmurs. Emily heard snippets of conversations, frantic, worried echoes that propelled her forward. Over there. Jack pointed as they pressed deeper into the narrow passage. The sound of raised voices grew louder, a chaotic chorus blending with the shouts from the main street. As they rounded a filthy corner, her eyes widened at the sight before them. The wild-eyed boy was there, his back pressed against the cold bricks as he faced off with a group of older kids. There was a tension in the air, like the stillness before a storm, and Emily felt her breath hitch. Go home. You don't belong here. One of the kids yelled, spitting venom with every word. The boy trembled but stood his ground, full of defiance. Emily's heart soared and sank simultaneously. What had drawn him to this dangerous confrontation? Stop it! Emily shouted, her voice cutting through the night. The group turned, their expressions shifting from anger to surprise. Mom, are you sure? Ethan tugged at her sleeve, the worry in his voice filling her with urgency. She turned back to him, seeing his fear mirrored in Jack's eyes. I need you to trust me, she said, feeling that strange mix of fear and purpose. We can't let them intimidate him. Who's your friend? Jack stepped protectively in front of Ethan, his stance firm but cautious. The wild-eyed boy blinked rapidly, his chest heaving with each breath. They won't stop. I didn't mean to, but they think I scared you. Emily's heart twisted. What do you mean? Scared us how? The boy took a shaky breath. I saw what happened to your friend. I was just trying to warn you. His eyes darted back to the older kids, who began to close in. You knew he could get hurt? Ethan asked, taking a hesitant step toward the boy. The wild-eyed boy nodded. tears mingling with the dirt on his face. I thought I could help him, but then I was too scared to say anything. Jack turned to Ethan, locking eyes with him as if a silent understanding was being forged. We all make mistakes, but that doesn't mean we don't care. Exactly, Emily chimed in, feeling determination surge within her. It's how we react that counts. Suddenly, one of the older kids lunged at the wild-eyed boy, and in an instinctive move, Emily threw herself in front of him. The situation escalated rapidly. Fists were drawn and voices clashed. In that moment, she understood that courage wasn't the absence of fear, it was facing it head-on. Hey! Jack shouted, stepping between them. You don't have to do this. Back off. The attackers paused, their bravado wavering as uncertainty flickered across their faces. For a fleeting moment, both sides seemed to realize that they were brought together by panic, fueled by the chaos echoing through the night. Emily steadied herself, fighting the tremors in her hands. They could find a way to diffuse this anger not just for them, but for the boy who had captured her attention from the start. Let us talk about this. We could figure it out, she urged, hoping to bridge the gap between fear and understanding. As the wild-eyed boy shifted beside her, she felt the weight of the moment, the fragile line between peace and violence ready to be crossed. What would they choose? Then out of nowhere, a loud siren wailed through the night, slicing through the tension. It felt like a sliver of hope, and she couldn't help but gasp. Would this help them confront the truth, or would it push everything deeper into the turmoil of the dark? The answer lingered in the air, a whisper waiting to be uncovered. Would they stand together, facing whatever came next, or would fear still rule their hearts in the chaos? The siren's wail sliced through the night like a beacon, both a warning and a call for unity. The older kids shifted uncomfortably, glancing at each other, uncertainty flickering in their eyes. Emily seized the moment, her voice steady and unwavering. We don't have to fight. This doesn't have to escalate. Let us just talk. Jack stood firm beside her, anchoring their trio with Ethan still clutching his mother tightly. The boy's wild-eyed fear reflected the many struggles they had just begun to untangle. Who are you? One of the older kids spat, but the edge of bravado in his voice began to fade. We're just trying to help, Jack said, his presence steady and reassuring. How about we set our differences aside for a moment? Why should we listen to you? Another challenger replied, clenching his fists. Because this is bigger than just a fight, Emily countered gently. We've all faced things we didn't plan for. Sometimes we react without thinking. But we don't need to keep this cycle of fear alive. A stillness fell over the group, the streetlights illuminating tense faces caught in a moment of contemplation. For the first time, they seemed to consider that fear might just echo in each of them. As the siren faded, the older kids shifted uneasily, glancing sideways at one another. What if we don't want to? One of them muttered defensively. I get it, Ethan chimed in, surprising everyone. Sometimes you just want to let loose. But it doesn't always help. I should know, I was in trouble too. He gestured toward the alley where their earlier chaos had unfolded. The youngest of the group squinted, forming a fragile connection. You got into trouble too? He asked, still suspicious but visibly curious now. Yeah, Ethan admitted, tension easing in his shoulders. But it wasn't worth it. I've seen how things can go wrong. The wild-eyed boy beside Emily spoke up, his voice softer now, trembling but brave. I just wanted to warn them what could happen. I didn't mean for things to go this way. We all want to protect ourselves, but sometimes we forget how, Jack inserted gently. Tonight isn't about guarding our hearts with fists. It's about reaching out. The atmosphere shifted with each word, the tension slowly dissipating as mouths opened, but anger was replaced with unease. The realization swirled, woven deeper with their expressions. Everyone just wanted a safe space. Maybe we've all been scared, Emily acknowledged, uncertainty lingering. But being afraid doesn't mean being alone. Together we can figure things out. At that moment a spark ignited. The energy in the air was charged with the possibility of understanding, a gateway to potential change. The older kids looked at each other, weighing the offer laid bare before them. Would they choose to walk a different path? Finally, the boy who had been watching them shuffled forward. If we could just talk later? He offered hesitantly, vulnerability shining through. Yeah, Jack said, a smile breaking through his tension. No one is looking for trouble. We just want to break the cycle. As discussions began to flow, Emily glanced down at Ethan, and she swore she felt the weight of the world lift a little. "See," she whispered. "You're braver than you know. You helped them talk, helped all of us." Ethan beamed with pride, the glimmer of accomplishment filling his heart. Jack looked up at the alleyway, sensing the first signs of hope budding in the darkness. And as the night wore on, moving toward dawn, the chaos transformed into conversations. Beneath each layer of human experience lay the very struggles that connected them all. In that moment, Emily knew that this was only the beginning. They would face challenges, stumble, and grow along the way. But together, they could embrace the unfolding journey, celebrating every small step toward healing and understanding. As the first rays of light started to break through the horizon, illuminating their way, Emily whispered, "We'll keep talking, right? No hiding, just honest." "Absolutely," Jack replied, resting a reassuring hand on her back. They walked side by side, hearts brimming with newfound strength and solidarity, ready to face whatever came next. Remember that night, the one that changed their lives? Those moments forged an undying bond. And it's a reminder that vulnerability is where strength begins, love conquers fear, and hope lights up the darkest paths. Now don't just watch. You need to act. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and feelings about this heartwarming ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait not even one more second to share. The journey continues and your voice matters.